In 2007, Indiana Governor Mitch Daniels asked 7 volunteer citizen leaders to serve on the Blue Ribbon Indiana Commission for Local Government Reform. Their mission? To recommend ways to streamline local government and in doing so help thousands of hard-working public servants provide the highest quality service to constituents. After much research, public input, and deliberation, the Commission offered a list of 27 recommendations designed to streamline the layers of local government to create more accountability and greater efficiency. For county government, rather than the current 3 county commissioners, the Commission recommended the establishment of a single elected county chief executive and the establishment of a single unified legislative body for county government. The Commission also recommended transferring responsibility for administering the duties of the county auditor, treasurer, recorder, assessor, surveyor, sheriff, and coroner to the county executive, among other duties. The Commission recommended retaining a local government role for property tax assessment under a county assessor appointed by the county executive, creating a county-wide body to oversee public safety services, and consolidating emergency public safety dispatch by county or multi-county region, and using communication systems compatible with the statewide 800 megahertz communication system. The Commission recommended transferring responsibility for all funding of the state's trial court system to the state, including public defenders and probation, as well as moving funding of child welfare from counties to the state. In terms of township government, the Commission recommended transferring all responsibility for administrating the duties currently performed by township government to the county executive. The Commission recommended establishing a county-wide tort relief levy. In Marion County, the responsibilities for the township small claims court would be switched to superior courts, the Commission urged. For Indiana schools, the Commission recommended merging districts with student populations below 2,000 and requiring that school corporation bonds be approved by the fiscal body of the municipal or county government containing the greatest proportion of assessed value in the school district. The Commission also urged districts to collaborate on purchasing, and the Commission recommended that districts conduct school elections during November in even years. For municipalities, the Commission recommended allowing the City Council to appoint the City Clerk, moving municipal elections to even years, and transferring the responsibilities of municipal health departments to the County Health Department. For schools and other special taxing districts, the Commission suggested reorganizing library systems by county and providing permanent library services for all citizens. Budgets and bonds of library and other special taxing districts would be approved by the fiscal body of the municipal or county government with the greatest proportion of assessed value in the unit seeking approval. And the Commission would strengthen the current joint purchasing infrastructure for libraries. For all units of government, the Commission recommended expanding voluntary coordination and consolidation of units and services and giving voters more power to compel consolidation. Local governments would be allowed to establish service districts with differentiated levels of service and corresponding tax rates. The Commission would facilitate local improvement efforts using best management and business practices. And it would prohibit employees of a local government unit from serving as elected officials within the same local unit of government. An Indiana Advisory Commission on Intergovernmental Relations would be formed to monitor progress towards these recommendations and conduct additional research. Additionally, a statewide benchmarking system would be established to monitor progress. Finally, the Commission also recommended designating a state office that would provide technical help to local government.
Now, that was an overview of the recommendations by the Indiana Commission for Local Government Reform. In this program, part of a series produced by City TV and the Mike Down Center for Indiana Politics at IPFW, we're going to be talking about those recommendations that deal specifically with municipal government. I'm Vince Robinson of Inc. Newspaper and the Fort Wayne Reader, and I'm joined by a very distinguished panel, very familiar with the workings of municipal government. Council President, actually, Tom Didier joins us from the City of Fort Wayne. City Clerk Sandy Kennedy from the City of Fort Wayne. Don Geradot, Board President of Monroeville, as well as Fort Wayne Mayor Tom Henry. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
3 recommendations of the 27 deal specifically with municipal government. Before we get to those, I want to get each of you, and we'll kind of go around the table, just give me a quick overview of your thoughts on government restructuring and the work of the Kernan-Shepard Commission.
Well, I personally think that, that I think that we need to do some type of restructuring. How that plays out, I'm not absolutely positive. I think that's what this panel is for. I know that the state was talking about, just going to one commissioner possibly, and that is a distinct possibility. How soon that's going to happen, we don't know. I think there's other things that need to happen internally with, maybe we're overlapping with particular positions, and maybe, if you have a county surveyor, I'm not sure, a different county position that basically overlaps with a city position, that maybe there's something there that you could gel or fix from that standpoint by looking at different positions. And I think that would help, because to me it seems like you don't want to continually have overlapping types positions. To me it's somewhat of a waste of money. And
Should be the issue of efficiency.
yeah, I've always been that way, just even with my own home. With even delegating different jobs and things like that out to my own children, from that standpoint, you look at it and you say, what's going to be the most efficient way to do something? I've been doing that personally all my life, trying to find the most efficient way when I was working for my father. What was the most efficient way to clean the back room? So that way you had better time management. And I do it all day long with my own job. So, and I think from that vantage point, even from the structure, I've heard them talk of possibly going to 4-day work weeks. Anything that you can restructure or help in cost savings, I think is probably a good way to go.
Let me ask you, Sandy, same
Sure.
thing.
Thank you, Vince. I've read the report. I have not been to a lot of meetings. I have not heard a lot of reasoning for some of their recommendations. I'm anxious to hear, IAC, I believe, had a meeting today in Rising Sun, and I'm very anxious to hear what, and I'm sure it will be mostly elected officials, what they think and say about it. I have heard consolidation for 30 years plus with the city and the county. We have done some, and I think it's has been successful. I think there's more we can do, but I see some problems with some that has already been done. And I guess that's to be expected. Everybody wants to be boss, and nobody wants to be everybody wants to be the chief. Nobody wants to be the little Indians. But when we consolidate, we have to. And it's going to take, I think, a lot of talk and a lot of preparation to get completely consolidated. Sure. And as I said before, I agree with some of their reasoning, but I'm still looking for some answers from them.
Don, your thoughts?
Thanks, Vince. Well, my thoughts, I believe in efficiency, government efficiency. I don't believe efficiency is necessarily found through consolidation, especially when it comes to consolidating the total county and the total city and so forth. And from that standpoint, I have problems with some of those issues. As far as combining planning departments, land use departments, things that actually make sense, we have no problem with.
Mayor Henry?
Vince, of the 27 recommendations from the report, about half of them deal with municipalities. The other half deal primarily with libraries, school systems. But those that apply to municipalities, for the most part, are pretty good recommendations. Now, there are some that are very politically sensitive. For instance, one of the recommendations is that the city council appoint the city clerk. And those city clerks, who are also clerk treasurers, are very concerned about that because they feel that along with their fiduciary responsibility should come the voice of the general public as far as electing them. But on the other hand, there are recommendations that just make sense. For instance, one of the recommendations, for the most part, says that those positions in the county that are non-policy making positions, the county assessor, the county recorder, the surveyor, the coroner, that they should not be elected positions. Rather, they should be appointed by the county commissioners or by the county commissioner, because they don't set policy. They follow policy. So I think there are a number of recommendations that really have a very valid foundation. And I think the committee that worked on the report should be given a lot of credit. They took a lot of political risks themselves by coming up with some of these recommendations. And again, some of them are very sensitive, but some of them really make sense in today's world. The whole township form of government, that was started back during the days of horse and buggies, and yet we still have it as part of our form of government. And what they're recommending is many of those responsibilities get turned over to the county. And I'm not so sure I disagree with that.
Let's, you mentioned the recommendation to allow the city council to appoint the city clerk in second-class cities. We want to come back to that.
Yes, we do.
Let's see what the other two are a little easier. Moving all municipal elections to an even-year cycle.
I
see any
personally,
problem. I don't see any problem
I don't
with
have any problem with that, but I'm not so sure that it should be during the presidential even year. You know, this year, we have the president and the governor, and all of the House in Indiana and half of the Senate all getting elected. Rather than put the mayor and the city council and the city clerk on that ballot as well, why don't we wait 2 years and bring us in line with the rest of the House who's up for re-election? In other words, still an even year, but not necessarily the same year as the president and the governor.
I would agree with that aspect.
Was there did they have an answer for how the elected officials now that are in the odd year going to get caught up, you know?
Yeah,
What
not
are we
that
going
I
to do?
saw.
Give them an extra year or
that I
take a
read,
year away
yeah.
from them?
Well, I had a chance to talk to a couple of members of the committee and also to former Governor Kernan himself and the Chief Justice. Their recommendation, if this were to go forward, would be to allow the elected officials to go beyond their elected time period and meet the next
Make up
year.
the year.
Yeah.
Do the year.
I would agree
Yeah.
with that wholeheartedly. I think from the one standpoint, I think if you get too many people on the ballot, it just confuses people. I mean, I think that, you know, it gives people an opportunity to you know, maybe there's only 12 people or 14 people. I'm just using a hypothetical number, but I think you get too many people on the ballot, it just starts to, you know, become a blur for some people. And I mean, if you really want to, you know, focus on the city election or the county election or whatever it might be, it would seem to make more sense.
Well,
to do
and
it
then
that way.
hopefully it would bring more people to the ballot
Yeah, you
place.
Don?
to
I
vote.
think that it would be a good idea. Also, one of the reasons I think it would be a good idea is because they wouldn't have the spillover from non-approval ratings of the president and so forth, and so the people really could vote for the people.
Right now, our Congress has, what, a 9% approval rating?
Yes.
I don't want to be on that ballot.
And I think now I think our people that vote in Allen County do vote for the people.
Yeah,
I
truly
really
that,
do
too.
believe they vote for the people.
And the nice thing, too, about the recommendation is we would save a tremendous amount of money in election costs.
That's very
Because right now, we have elections, 3 out of 4 years, and now it would just be
Yeah.
2 years.
2 years.
2 out of 2 years, yeah.
And another recommendation would sync up school elections as well. So
Agreed.
another recommendation is kind of a moot point, you know, in county, but that's transferring the responsibilities of the municipal health departments to the county health department.
It's already there.
It's already done.
Exactly. So a moot
Already
point
there,
here.
yeah.
So let's get back to the big one. Allow the city council to appoint the city clerk in second-class cities. But let's talk philosophically, too, about the whole idea, because this was, when we did the show with the county folks, this was a big issue, the idea of taking positions that are elected now and making them appointed. Let's talk about, just philosophically, good idea, bad idea?
I think it's a bad idea. Because, first of all, we're doing a disservice to the citizens of our city by taking that position away from them. And city council always has a majority. We could get in the habit of maybe going out there and picking a special friend, and that's not qualified. We hope, elected officials wouldn't do this, but we do know it has happened and will continue to happen. And I think it's very important that this person be elected because he or she is a liaison between the legislative branch and the administrative branch of city government. And I think that is very important to keep. I know you might say, well, because they're a Democrat or a Republican, they're going to show, favor. No, that does not happen when you're a good clerk. And we have 18, maybe 19. I don't know whether Columbus, Indiana got their second-class rating or not.
I don't know.
But we only have 18, unless Columbus came in, city clerks in the state of Indiana. The rest of the clerks are clerk treasurers. And I don't see any reasoning for this. It's not money saving, revenue saving, because we're going to have an election anyway. All we're doing is removing a name from the ballot. We have a wonderful league, state organization that, we do extra schooling. I am, I think, the only certified municipal clerk that Fort Wayne has ever had. And that's because I continued education to get that. First you get your Indiana accreditation, and then you take classes and get your national certification. And I can't see a person and I'm not saying just a clerical person, but I can't see a person coming in there being that involved in a position to go ahead with extra training and education to run that office as efficiently as it needs to be run.
Further thoughts?
Well, I think the reasoning behind this, whether you agree with it or not, I think the reasoning behind it was, except for those areas, particularly that were clerk treasurers that might have an additional responsibility over and above a clerk, was exactly what Sandy said, that the interpretation by many is that the clerk is a clerk to the city council. Therefore, it's an administrative position that should report to the city council. They keep the minutes of the meetings, they set the schedules, they contact city council members and so on. So it's really more of an administrative position reporting to the council. Therefore, the council should appoint. Now, I certainly understand where Sandy is coming from because, again, depending on the majority of council, it could certainly be a political patronage position ultimately, and do we want that? Whereas by running, you might be able to take that out of the mix. So I think there are pros and cons. Sandy is an exception. She really is. She has done a tremendous job as city clerk. I'm not sure all city clerks in our state.
Yes, they do.
You say they do, but
I say they do. They do.
Okay.
And really, Tom, I have been involved in the
I know you have.
association.
I
I've
know
been
you have.
president and
I
gone
know you
clear
have.
down the line, and I've brought 3 conventions, to Fort Wayne, state conventions. You're just a very dedicated public servant. And I do not know of one city clerk or clerk treasurer that is not a dedicated person. And I do not think election should be taken away from them.
And you raise an interesting point, because that's something that the commission took great pains to point out as well. It was very complimentary of the elected officials, even those who would be affected if these recommendations were taken into account. But I guess the question I have, and I'll throw it out, start with you, Don. Is it something that's even broken? The idea of the folks who are elected now,
so.
is that?
I don't think so either.
I don't believe it's broken at all. I've been in my position for 25 years and worked with several clerk treasurers and so forth, and it's never really been an issue. Most of the clerk treasurers that I've worked with were all dedicated people to their job as public servants and did a good job.
Well, I can tell you from just the 6 months being, council president and working with, Sandy on a weekly basis, very efficient, very organized, and, from the credential standpoint, she's, been a strength for me from that vantage point of having somebody with that kind of knowledge to basically help you through basically a difficult transition. So, I think, Tom mentioned it earlier that, that she doesn't really have any legislative authority from that standpoint. So from the, the county
Sometimes
recorders.
I wish I did.
But at the same time, I think that, she shows, the dedication part of it, the educational part of it, and how she wants to, she gives 110% if that's possible. But I truly believe that shows a huge dedication portion of what needs to happen in the city clerk.
Thank you.
Or as a city clerk.
Thank you, Tom.
I do
Well,
say that.
I appreciate that. But I have a resolution that our league presented to all of the state legislators.
In response to the...
In response to that, right. And the clerks and clerk treasurers are elected to represent all citizens in a professional, fair, and unbiased manner, and should not be obligated to the legislative body for appointment. We will, as an organization, aggressively fight this. We have before. Several years ago, someone in our state legislature came up with this idea that they wanted us appointed, and we fought them that time and we won. So we will fight them again, and I'm sure we will come out on the winning side.
Well, this will certainly be a controversial issue, as it is with those county officials who, the recommendation to elect them as opposed, or to appoint them as opposed to elect them. Let me ask you about the report in total. The report, 27 recommendations in all. I think there were 8 that dealt specifically with county government, really only 3 that dealt specifically with municipal government. What do you think that says about the way municipal government is run versus county government?
That we're doing a better job.
There's probably efficiency issues in that. So.
I think it is efficiency issues, perhaps.
It's a more efficient system.
Well, we don't have as many layers, and I think that's what several of us are saying, is the county government system right now throughout the state, not just Allen County, but throughout the state, is layered in one bureaucratic layer after another. And that's why, again, going back to what I said earlier, it doesn't surprise me that the recommendation to move a lot of those from elected to appointed positions was seen as a good move, trying to remove some of those bureaucratic layers. So I think that's probably why many people see that the county is much more complex to move around and through than the city.
Would some of the changes, if adopted, that made for a more powerful, if that's for lack of a better term, a county executive, that single county commissioner, do you think that would make relations with other units of government easier, more difficult?
Tom's smiling over there. I think myself personally, it would probably make it more efficient from the standpoint that if he needed to talk to,
Or she,
excuse me, or she, to the mayor, for instance, or to somebody in general, they're not sitting there having one person make a decision and then the other two don't like the decision that the other person made. And I think that's why, when you have a mayor of the city making the decision, and then you had a commissioner or a executive, as they're calling it, making the decision, it would become, again, more efficient because you're not having that, what Tom said, an extra layer of government.
And I would think it would be much easier for the mayor to go to one person than having to go to 3.
Mm-hmm.
Don, your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts on it, I've never had any problems working with county government because I do all the time. Have never had any issues with the county commissioners. When we need something, we can get it done. I understand dealing with 3 people is probably more difficult than it is dealing with 1 because of just the fact of contacting everyone. But I myself have never had any issues with that at all.
I mean, in the 5 years that I've been on city council, I mean, I've dealt with the county commissioners myself, and all of them are extremely easy to get along with, from at least from my standpoint. So, I mean, but at the same time, again, it comes down to the efficiency. I keep going back to the efficiency part of it, you know. I mean, there's other places, I'm sure that we could probably become more efficient even in city government, you know, but, you know, there's always room for improvement. But I think that might be one issue that they're probably going to look at extremely heavy, just like they're talking with Sandy on the clerk's part of it. But I don't think that the clerk's part is going to.
We're going to win.
I truly believe that. I do not doubt that one bit, Sandy.
In a perfect world, where we took these recommendations as recommendations, looked at other things, you know, from a local level in terms of you know, this idea of having more home rule, for example, how would you see this process moving forward? I mean, if we were looking at making government more efficient, how should it work? How should these recommendations be incorporated into an actual working model of how to reform local government?
I think
That's a big question.
I think the mayor has already started that operation. We are combining, you know, offices. He is attempting to combine other departments. So I think, you know, I think it's already started.
I think we have a dual responsibility.
Yeah.
One, at the local level, and that is to attempt to consolidate or integrate as best we can the various services that many of us are actually paying twice for
Sure.
at the city level and the county level. So we have, if nothing else, a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers to make sure they're getting the best bang for their buck. That's at the local level. At the state level, they need to take a look at these recommendations and decide which ones truly would benefit our state, realizing that some of them are very politically sensitive, and they need to listen to all of those affected. But at the same time, they need to have the intestinal fortitude to move forward with those recommendations that truly will benefit all the citizens of Indiana. You know, when you realize that Indiana has more elected officials in our state than any state in the country, that's something to think about. We have more elected people in this state than any state in the country. And one of the reasons for that, again, is we have all of these layers of government. And I'm going back to the townships and so on. A lot of states did away with that years ago. We still have ours. And I'm nothing against those elected officials at the township level. It's just that can we restructure and make our form of government a little more effective, a little more efficient? And I think that's at the state level. I truly believe that whether Ms. Long or our current governor is reelected, both of them will aggressively go after this particular piece of action at the next legislative level.
Tom, do you think we'll have the efficiency? I mean, somebody has to do their work. And so we're going to put maybe 100, 200 people under this one umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
Is that one elected official going to be able to efficiently and correctly do his or her job?
When you say 100 people, 200 people.
Well, I mean, if we're doing away with the township trustees,
Uh-huh.
and all of that's going to be put under the county, right?
Okay.
The
Well,
county assessor?
Could be. That's one possibility. That's
Trustee or
one.
whatever, wherever they're
Or
going
it
to be
could go
put.
it could go to state SSA too.
Well, let me ask it this
Yeah.
way. We've got a little less than 2 minutes left, so I'd like each of you to comment, but briefly. You know, should this be a top-down thing where the state house takes these recommendations and says, okay, here's what we're going to do, or should it be a grassroots thing where locally, you know, Mississippi?
Grassroots, definitely.
I would say definitely grassroots.
And then how do we get the ball started? And I know I've asked a tough question, and we've got a little bit of time left.
Well, I'm going to disagree with my two colleagues. I believe that part of it is grassroots. There's some decisions that we need to make locally,
Right.
but there's also some decisions that need to be made at the State House.
And I agree with that. Maybe, you know, if you sit down and make a, you know, stack one and stack two, you know, and take the ones that the local can do and the ones with the state. But let's keep big government out of if we can.
But
They
do
tell
we-
us enough to do.
Do we agree that this is a process worth pursuing?
I agree.
Oh, I
I
agree.
totally
I
agree
agree
with
totally.
I agree.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
totally.
If it's going to be more efficient, I agree with it completely.
And cost saving,
Cost saving.
Yeah.
cost saving.
This has been great. You guys have been excellent. Thanks so much for your time.
Oh, thank you,
welcome.
Vince. It's been fun.
Okay.
That's all the time we have for this edition. This was on municipal government, but we also have programming on county government, township government, and local schools. This program has been sponsored by City TV and the Mike Down Center for Indiana Politics at Indiana University, Purdue University, Fort Wayne. I'm Vince Robinson of Inc. Newspaper and the Fort Wayne Reader. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.